Growing up, my gaming PC wasn't just a thing. To me, it was my fortress, my workshop, and my escape hatch from the circus I called family. In a small, noisy house where walls were paper thin and every discussion turned into a debate about who drank the last soda, having a corner of the universe that was yours was a rare luxury. Mine was a desk in the far corner of my bedroom, wedged between the window and the bookshelf that leaned like it was auditioning for a disaster movie. On it sat a custom-built PC I'd been piecing together since I was 16. It wasn't flashy, no liquid cooling or RGB lights that could signal planes, but it was powerful, stable, and completely mine. I'd earned every part. My weekends were spent at the local electronics store, smiling at customers who thought HDMI cables were those things for Wi-Fi, and listening to dads loudly explain specs they just Googled. Every paycheck, I'd set aside a little, a better graphics card here, a bigger SSD there. By the time I was done, it could run anything I threw at it and store everything important to me, my college applications, the music I'd been recording in my room, even a half-finished indie game I was coding with my friend Aaron. That's why, when I came home one Sunday evening after visiting a buddy out of state, my brain couldn't process what I was seeing. My desk looked naked. The monitor was gone. The tower was gone. Even my mechanical keyboard, which had cost me 2 months of ramen dinners, was missing. Casey, my older sister, was sprawled on the couch in the living room, eating cereal out of a mixing bowl. She had the look of someone who'd never been caught doing anything wrong in her life, not because she was innocent, but because she had a natural talent for making everyone else feel overdramatic for noticing. "Where's my computer?" I asked, already feeling the answer in my gut. "Oh, that?" She didn't even look up from her phone. "I sold it." For a second, I thought she was joking. We'd fought before, about laundry, about her borrowing my things, but selling my entire setup? That was nuclear. "You what?" "You'll thank me later," she said, spoon still in her mouth. "You were wasting your life on that thing. I got you a head start." "A head start on what?" "Life. I used the money to pay off some bills and get my car fixed." We're family, so it's basically a shared investment. There it was, the Casey special. She had a way of making selfish decisions sound like moral acts. This was the same person who once borrowed my bike for a weekend and returned it 2 months later with different handlebars. I didn't yell. I didn't lunge across the room and demand she hand over the cash. I just stood there, my hands in my hoodie pocket, and realized something important. If I burned all my energy being furious now, I'd be empty later. And I had a feeling there would be a later. That night, I lay in bed staring at the empty corner where my PC had been. My first thought was how much work it would take to replace it. My second was how sweet it would be when the day came that she needed me for something, and I could set the terms. So I went back to the electronics store the next day and signed up for every extra shift they'd give me. Not just to rebuild a PC, but to build something bigger, a future where I wasn't the kid she could casually rob for family investments. And I kept that mental ledger open. The first month after Casey sold my PC was the hardest. I'd gotten so used to ending my days by logging in, coding a few lines for my game, or hopping into a match with Aaron, that suddenly my evenings felt hollow. No screen glow, no mechanical keyboard clicks, no headphones blocking out the constant sound of the TV in the living room. I thought about rebuilding right away. But something in me said not to rush it. Buying a new PC now would have been like replacing a stolen wallet with loose bills sticking out, too easy to hit again. Instead, I threw myself into work at the electronics store. At first, my boss thought I was just desperate for hours. But the truth was, I'd realized something. I'd spent years using computers, but now I wanted to understand them on a level where I could fix, upgrade, and maybe even design them from scratch. So between shifts, I started hanging around the repair counter, asking the tech guys questions. That's where I met Carl, a grumpy, middle-aged repair wizard who looked like he'd been personally offended by every laptop he'd ever opened. He didn't like talking to customers, but when he saw I could solder without burning my hands off, he started letting me shadow him. Within 6 months, I was doing my own repair tickets, busted motherboards, fried power supplies, hard drives making noises like haunted coffee grinders. And here's the thing about fixing other people's tech: you start to see how emotionally attached people are to their devices. The number of customers who came in near tears because they thought they'd lost their photos, or their kid's school project, was staggering. I understood them. I'd been them. Meanwhile, Casey treated my missing PC like it had never existed. She'd occasionally pop by the store, waving her phone in my face to show me some new app she liked, with zero awareness of the irony. She still had her job at the salon, still borrowed things from our parents without asking, still acted like she was the family's unofficial life coach. I didn't bother reminding her about the debt. That wasn't how this was going to work. My plan was simple: keep my skills sharp, keep building my side business fixing PCs for friends and coworkers, and wait. By the end of the first year, I had my own custom rig again, better than the one she'd sold. Dual monitors, top-tier graphics card, solid-state everything. But here's the part one didn't tell anyone, not even Aaron. I also had a growing list of private clients from the repair side hustle, each one paying me more than the store did per hour. Year 2 was when things really clicked. I left the electronics store, set up a small workshop in my apartment, and officially went full-time with computer and console repairs. I was earning enough to cover rent, bills, and keep upgrading my tools. Life was good. And then, like fate was finally clocking in for my shift, the message came through. "Hey, so my laptop's acting weird. Freezing a lot. Can you take a look? Casey." I stared at my phone for a full minute, grinning like an idiot. The ledger in my head, the one I'd been keeping for 2 years, finally had a payment due date. The message from Casey sat in my notifications for a good 5 minutes before I even opened it. Not because I didn't see it, I saw it instantly, but because I knew this was one of those moments you don't rush. Her text was short: "Hey, so my laptop's acting weird. Freezing a lot. Can you take a look?" The understatement made me laugh. Casey wasn't the kind of person to ask for help unless she'd already tried and failed to fix something herself, and her fixing usually meant closing and reopening the lid or hitting it until it stopped making noise. I typed back slowly, like I wasn't sitting there with my phone in hand. "Sure. Bring it by whenever." She replied within seconds, "Thanks. I'll swing by tomorrow morning." And that's when it hit me: she was coming to my apartment. She hadn't been here once in the 2 years I'd lived on my own. Not for birthdays, not for holidays. I wasn't on her list unless she needed something. Which was fine by me. My place was my sanctuary, a little 2-bedroom where one room doubled as my workshop. Every square foot of it was built from work she didn't think I could do. The next morning, I made coffee, cleared a spot on my workbench, and did what any self-respecting sibling with a long memory would do. I pulled out my rate sheet. I'd updated it a few months back when I decided my time was worth more, and for special cases, rush jobs, complicated data recovery, I had a multiplier I rarely used. I highlighted it in yellow. At exactly 9:04 a.m., there was a knock. I opened the door to find Casey holding her laptop like it was a newborn, hair in a messy bun, oversized sunglasses despite it being cloudy. "Wow, nice place," she said, stepping in without waiting for an invite. "You've really upgraded since, you know." She didn't say, "Since I sold your PC." But the pause was long enough to fill in. I gestured toward the workbench. "Let's see it." She set the laptop down like it might explode. "It's been freezing a lot. I can't get anything done for work, and the fan sounds like a jet engine." I tried cleaning it, but... I opened the lid. The keyboard had crumbs lodged between the keys, and the screen was covered in fingerprints. "When was the last time you had this serviced?" She blinked. Never?" I figured computers just kind of kept going until you replaced them." "Right." I powered it up, listening to the fan struggle like it was climbing a hill. "Well, this is going to take some work. Could be a few hours." "That's fine," she said. "Family discount, right?" I almost smiled. "Almost. Of course. I'll send you the invoice when it's done." She grinned, clearly thinking she was about to get a freebie. "Perfect. I owe you one." When she left, I set the laptop aside and took my time diagnosing it. There was nothing in here I couldn't fix, just a combination of dust-clogged fans, outdated drivers, and a hard drive on its last legs. But the real work was going to be in the invoice. I pulled up my rate sheet, added the rush job multiplier, then added a little note at the bottom: family discount applied, triple the usual rate. By the time I was done cleaning, replacing the drive, and reinstalling her files, the machine was running smoother than the day she bought it. I put the invoice in an envelope, set it on top of the laptop, and leaned back in my chair. Tomorrow, she'd pick it up. And I'd watch the moment she realized family discount didn't mean what she thought it did. Casey texted the next afternoon, on my way to grab the laptop. Thanks again. Short, polite on the surface, but I could practically hear the unspoken, and obviously I'm not paying much. I had the laptop on my workbench, polished and running like it was auditioning for a tech commercial. On top sat an envelope with the invoice inside. I'd written it out by hand, partly for the personal touch, partly because seeing a bold number in ink hits harder than a neat email PDF. She arrived exactly 13 minutes later, breezing in with the kind of energy that says, "I'm here for my free favor." Same leather jacket, same sunglasses, even though the sun was nowhere to be found. She didn't look around my apartment. Her eyes went straight to the laptop. "Wow, it looks so clean," she said, brushing her fingertips over the new keyboard like she just discovered I'd replaced it with gold. "I can't believe it's the same machine." "It's better than the same machine," I said. "Runs faster than when you bought it. Go ahead, try it." She opened it, and it booted up in seconds. "Whoa. Okay, yeah, this is crazy fast. You're, actually good at this." I kept my face neutral. "Thanks. Here's the invoice." I slid the envelope across the workbench like a dealer in a high-stakes poker game. She smiled, probably expecting a token $20. Family. Rate. She tore it open and started reading. Watching her face change was art. First, a little confusion. Then disbelief. Then that slow, dawning horror when the math clicks in your head. "Wait. This says $360. "Correct," I said, sipping my coffee. She blinked. "For a laptop cleaning?" "Cleaning, new hard drive, data transfer, driver updates, rush service. And your family discount." She tilted her head like a confused dog. "Family discount? This is triple what you'd charge a stranger." "Exactly. That's not how discounts work." I shrugged. "It is when the family in question sold my entire computer without asking and then told me I'd thank them later." Her mouth opened and closed. "Oh my God, you're still on about that? It was 2 years ago." "I told you it was for the greater good." "Yeah, I remember. You called it an investment in the family. This is the return on that investment, compounded." She scoffed. "You can't be serious. We're family. You're supposed to help each other out." I leaned forward. "Funny, I don't remember you giving me a family discount when you sold my PC for full market value." "That's different." "Sure," I said, leaning back. "Different in that this time, I actually gave you something back." She tried a different tactic, the guilt trip. "Do you know how much I've done for you over the years?" I thought about it. Borrowing my bike for a day and returning it 2 months later with a different seat. Borrowing my jacket and giving it back smelling like perfume I'm allergic to? Yeah, the list is long. Her eyes narrowed. "You're unbelievable." "Probably," I said, taking another sip of coffee. "But your laptop's fixed, and the invoice is due in 7 days. Late payments incur a storage fee, family or not." She stood there for a moment, clearly debating whether to keep arguing. Finally, she grabbed the laptop, muttered something about never coming here again, and stormed toward the door. I didn't follow her. I just watched her leave, listening to the sound of her boots stomping down the hall. The second the door shut, I smiled. Because Casey had many flaws, but letting things go quietly wasn't one of them. This wasn't over. And I was ready for round 2. It took less than 24 hours for the family group chat to blow up. Normally, it's a digital graveyard, occasional birthday wishes, blurry pictures of food, and Mom's chain messages from 2009 warning about new Facebook fees. But now it was lighting up like we were planning a bank robbery. Mom, Casey says you charged her $360 for fixing a laptop? Uncle Tom, man, that's steep. For family? Aunt Mel, I paid less to get my breaks done. Cousin Dave, wait, you fix laptops? Mine's been slow. That last one made me smile. Even in the middle of family drama, there's always one opportunist. I typed back, she got the family discount. Casey jumped in instantly. That's not a discount. From there it turned into the usual family pile-on. People who didn't know the full story making moral judgments, people who didn't know the story but liked watching a fight anyway, and at least one person sending memes in the middle of it all. I didn't bother explaining over text. I knew Mom wouldn't be able to resist calling me directly. Sure enough, my phone rang 5 minutes later. Why? She began, skipping hello entirely. Are you charging your sister so much? She sold my PC for car repairs and never paid me back. I said. That was years ago, she said in the tone people use to waive off parking tickets. You need to let it go. Funny, I said. You're not telling her to let go of the $360. Mom sighed like I just told her I was suing Santa Claus. This is different. She's been having a rough time lately. So was I when I came home to find my desk empty. I said. You're being petty. She snapped. Family helps each other out. Exactly. I said. And 2 years ago, she helped herself to my computer. Silence. I could almost hear her grinding her teeth. Just lower it. Do it for me. No, I said. She can pay the invoice or not bring me her stuff next time. Pretty simple. There was a long pause, the kind that means you've just been written out of the next holiday photo. Fine, Mom finally said. But don't expect anyone to take your side. That was the best part. I didn't need them on my side. I just needed Casey to keep talking. The more she whined, the more people would remember the reason for the discount. And talk she did. By the end of the day, my cousin sent me screenshots of Casey's Instagram story, a paragraph about toxic siblings, and price gouging, paired with a boomerang of her sipping coffee in what I assumed was an attempt to look unbothered. She conveniently left out the part where she'd sold my PC. She also tagged me, rookie mistake. Within hours, 3 clients messaged me. Triples fair if she sold your rig. LOL, is this the sister you told me about? Next time charge quadruple. The best one came from Erin, my old game coding friend. You should have billed her per crumb removed. By Friday, Casey still hadn't paid. But she did send one more text. You're going to regret this when you need something from me. I laughed, screenshotted it, and filed it away in a folder on my phone labeled Future Comedy. If history had taught me anything, Casey's help was exactly how we ended up here in the first place. 4 days after the invoice went out, my phone buzzed with a text from Casey. We need to talk about the bill. Call me. I ignored it for an hour, partly because I was busy, partly because making her wait felt good. When I finally called, she answered on the first ring. So, she began, in a tone that told me she thought she was about to deliver a brilliant compromise. I've been thinking about this whole laptop situation. I'm willing to pay you. Fantastic, I said. If you do something for me first. There it was. The Casey clause. She explained, her friend Margot's home office had a few issues, a printer that wouldn't connect, a Wi-Fi signal that dropped constantly, and Casey had already promised I'd fix it. In exchange, she'd settle her invoice. Casey, I said slowly, are you trying to pay me for fixing your laptop by giving me another job I didn't agree to? It's a win-win, she said brightly. You get more work, Margot gets her stuff fixed, and I don't have to, move money around right now. Right, I said. Except it's not a win for me, because I'd be doing another unpaid job to get paid for the one I already did. She sighed like I was being unreasonable. You're impossible. This is me extending an olive branch. Olive branch? I said. This is more like you throwing the branch at my head and charging me for the leaves. That's when she shifted tactics. You know Mom agrees with me, right? She said you're blowing this out of proportion. I could picture Mom, arms crossed, probably saying that while making dinner like she was narrating a cooking show. Of course she does, I said. She's been Team Casey since '98. You're just bitter, Casey said. I was the responsible one growing up. I laughed. You once left a toaster plugged in for a week because you thought the light meant it was charging. Whatever, she snapped. I'm offering you a chance to settle this without more drama. Oh, there's going to be more drama, I said. Just not the kind you're hoping for. She made a sound halfway between a scoff and a growl. Fine. I'll find someone else to fix Margot's stuff. But you're going to regret turning this into a big thing. Already regretted it 2 years ago, I said. This is just the sequel. She hung up without saying goodbye, and I sat there for a minute, smiling. If Casey was dragging Mom into this, and now some mysterious Margot, it meant she was losing control of the narrative. And when Casey lost control, she tended to double down in spectacular ways. I didn't have to wait long. That evening, the group chat lit up again, only this time, it was screenshots of Casey's Facebook post. She'd written a long, passive-aggressive rant about family members who care more about money than relationships, complete with a blurry selfie of her looking sad and a caption about learning who's really there for you. Half the comments were sympathy from her friends. The other half were from people who clearly knew the PC story and were asking uncomfortable questions. One person even wrote, "Wait, is this the same sibling who replaced your hard drive? That's worth $360 easy." My favorite was from my buddy Aaron. Can't believe you didn't charge her extra for emotional labor. I didn't comment, I just took screenshots for the future comedy folder. But I noticed something else. The post had more likes than anything she'd put up in months. That meant she was feeding off the attention, which also meant she wasn't done. And I knew exactly how Casey operated. When she thought she had an audience, she didn't just keep going, she escalated. Saturday morning, I was halfway through my first cup of coffee when there was a knock. Not the polite 3 taps you give a neighbor, but the sharp, impatient rhythm of someone who already decided they're right. I peeked through the curtain. And there they were, Casey, standing with her arms folded like she was auditioning for a crime drama, and Mom beside her, clutching her purse the way people hold a parachute right before they jump. I opened the door just enough to lean against the frame. Well, this is either an intervention or a very unconvincing sales call. We're here to settle this like adults, Mom said, stepping forward as if she owned the property. That's rich, I replied. Adults usually don't sell each other stuff to pay for brake pads. Casey groaned, rolling her eyes so hard I thought they might rattle. Are you ever going to stop bringing that up? When you stop pretending it was some sort of character-building exercise, I said. Mom's voice dropped into that stern, low register she used when we were kids. Enough. Casey came here to make things right. She's got the money. Casey reached into her bag and pulled out a white envelope. Here's the $360. She dangled it just out of reach like we were playing keep away. On one condition. I crossed my arms. And that is? You agree to drop the whole thing. No more bringing up the PC. No more telling people about it. No more drama. I let out a laugh that was more air than sound. So I take the money, but I also pretend the last 2 years never happened? It's called moving on, she said, slow and condescending, like she was teaching me about photosynthesis. Casey, this isn't a truce. It's a hush payment. Mom jumped in. This is your chance to be the bigger person. Funny how being the bigger person always involves me losing something, I said. Casey shifted her weight. Do you have any idea how embarrassing it is to get messages about this? My friends think I'm some kind of PC thief? I offered. Her jaw locked. Wow. Real mature. I took a sip of coffee. You brought the envelope. You can put it back in your purse the same way it came out. Her fingers tightened around it for a second, long enough for me to see she'd thought about actually handing it over, before she slipped it back inside with a smug little smile. "Fine," she said. "But don't come to me when you need help someday." "I won't," I said. "I've learned my lesson about letting you help." Mom gave me the "we'll talk later" glare, then tried one last swing. "You could have taken the money and ended all this." I stepped back into the doorway. "Yeah, but where's the fun in that?" Casey muttered something under her breath, stormed toward the car, and slammed the door so hard the neighbor's dog started barking. Mom followed, shaking her head like I'd just thrown away a winning lottery ticket. I watched them pull out of the driveway, coffee still in hand. No, I didn't regret a thing. Because this wasn't about $360 anymore, it was about history. And I already knew exactly how it was going to end. 2 weeks passed. I hadn't heard a peep from Casey, which meant she was either sulking or busy telling people her own edited version of the story. I figured that was the end of it, until an email popped into my business inbox. Subject line: urgent, laptop died again. Need help ASAP. The sender? Casey. I almost spit my coffee. She'd attached a single-sentence message: "Please don't ignore this. I have a big presentation tomorrow and everything's frozen." For a moment, I considered deleting it. But then I remembered her smirk on my doorstep, the Facebook rant, and the envelope she'd waved like bait. I replied with a single PDF, an official-looking invoice template with my logo, the words "Priority Emergency Service" at the top, and a total: $1,080. 00, triple rate applied, family discount. I added a note: payment must clear before work begins. Have a nice day. It took exactly 7 minutes for my phone to ring. "This is ridiculous," she hissed. "That's more than I paid for the laptop." "Yeah," I said. "And selling my PC without asking was more than I paid for therapy." We all have our crosses to bear. You can't be serious. I have a deadline. Casey, I'm very serious. I'm also fully booked today. The only way I'm moving you to the front of the line is if you pay the triple rate. Family perk. She sputtered for a few seconds, then hung up. I figured that was the last I'd hear. But 20 minutes later, a payment notification pinged. Casey had paid every penny. When she showed up, I fixed the laptop in 15 minutes flat. Nothing dramatic, just a failing hard drive cable. I handed it back and, before she could speak, slid a crisp receipt across the table. "For your records," I said. "Proof you paid me triple. In case anyone asks." Her face went through 3 shades of red before she grabbed the laptop and left without a word. Later that night, Mom texted me, "Was that really necessary?" I sent back a screenshot of the payment confirmation with a thumbs up emoji. Because here's the thing, Casey will tell this story for years, but for once, she won't get to control the ending. And I'll keep the receipt framed in my office, right above my desk, under a sign that says, "Family discount applies, rates may vary."